Hello, I am Peter Okwocha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. Victory is in sight for South Africa's ANC in the country's elections, but with its worst performance since the end of apartheid, it's a bitter-sweet win.
And I'm Nomsa Masego live from South Africa, where the official opposition has been taken to task for failing to capitalize on the ruling party's mistakes.
The cost of human violence and conflict: 28 million people are displaced within their countries in 1 year alone. A year on from the Solai Dam disaster in Kenya, we see how residents are coping. Also on the program, doing it by design. Why the big names are choosing to wear Nigerian.
We are selling our culture, and we are happy that a lot of people, even the people in diaspora, are really embracing it. And in sport, a boost for Liverpool as Egypt's Mohamed Salah is set to make a return this weekend. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Victory is in sight for South Africa's ANC party in the country's elections. But 25 years on from Nelson Mandela's inauguration as president and the end of apartheid, his party is on course for its worst ever result in national polls. With nearly all the votes counted, the ANC has more than 57% of the vote. Well, let's get more now from our correspondent Nomsa Maseko, who's live from Johannesburg. Nomsa.
Well, the political landscape here in South Africa has changed, but somewhat slightly, because when you look at the election results from 2014, the ANC came up with a 62% victory. And this time around, they have dropped to just over 57%. A lot of people are still, though, pinning their hopes on Cyril Ramaphosa in that he will change the political party's fortunes around. And earlier, we spoke to ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule.
Will run this country for the next other 25 years. So those people, we are saying to them, we are not going to fail you. We are going to continue with where we ended. We have actually heard some of the issues, concerns we have raised. And therefore, even those who are protesting, who have not voted, we are going to serve everybody.
We do hear from Ace Magashule. They're talking about the ANC's victory. It is somewhat of an achievement, though, for the ANC, even though the party is shrouded in a number of corruption scandals. But now, turning our attention to the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance, they've been taken to task for failing, though, to take advantage of the ANC's mistakes. The DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, held a press briefing at the Results Center in Pretoria and had this to say.
We went hard and fought for an incredible dream. We went hard and fought for holding the center of politics. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I know that the party that I lead is got complete support towards that project. We've led towards that project. When I took over 4 years ago, that was the project and still is the project. It was a tough contested election. One of the things that have happened is that the ruling party has successfully put a new driver in a bus that is broken. I can't dismiss that.
Mmusi Maimane, DA leader, speaking there from Tshwane at the Election Results Center. But joining me to discuss this issue further is political analyst Xolani Dube. It looks set that with 95% of the vote counted so far, that the ANC has been given another mandate by the electorate.
Look, I don't think so, because democracy is about numbers. I don't think that the numbers that the ANC has been given the mandate to govern this country are a democratic number, because number of people who voted, they voted for vote of no confidence to any political organization, because the number of people who did not vote, they surpassed the number of people who voted. And so in a way, I think that the shortfall of our South African democracy, and maybe people are starting to say these concepts of democracy, yes, is an elusive one, is not bearing any fruit for them.
But Cyril Ramaphosa now has a responsibility to clean up his bloated cabinet. Can he do that?
I don't think so. Look, ANC is an institution, and Cyril Ramaphosa is part of that institution. And so for him to think that he's going to act outside the central command of the ANC, I think we are building the castle in the air. Cyril, as we speak, is the most compromised president within the ANC. As well as you can see, the citizens also, they've even communicated to him to say, look, where you are is where we don't want you to be. And so I think if Cyril was patriotic, he was not going to use ANC as a vehicle to regenerate and to reimagine South Africa as a country.
It remains, though, to be seen in terms of what type of decisions Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be making as the country's president. Xolani Dube, political analyst, thank you very much for joining us here. But there is also another issue that the smaller opposition parties have taken with the IEC. They are threatening legal action because they claim that this election has been rigged, and we are yet to hear from the IEC what steps will be taken thereof. It's back to you, Peter.
Many thanks. Nomsama Seko live there from Johannesburg. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa. At least 50 migrants are reported to have drowned when their boat capsized off the coast of Tunisia. State media say 16 people were rescued by fishermen in waters 40 miles from the city of Sfax. The boat's passengers were from countries in sub-Saharan Africa. French special forces have rescued 4 foreign hostages in Burkina Faso, 2 of whom were French, in an operation that cost the lives of 2 soldiers. The 2 other people rescued were an American and a South Korean. Nearly 900 children, who were part of a militia helping to fight Islamist militant group Boko Haram have been freed. That's according to the United Nations. 106 girls were amongst the children released by the pro-government Civilian Joint Task Force. It's part of the government's commitment to end and prevent the use of child soldiers. Ishaq Khalid has more from Abuja.
These children, according to UNICEF, are aged 13 to 18. And they have been with the vigilante group in northeastern Nigeria. The group is helping the Nigerian military fight Boko Haram since 2013. And then so far, the children have been handed over to UNICEF. They have been involved in combatant and non-combatant roles, according to UNICEF. And more than 100 of them are girls. So now UNICEF and the Civilian Joint Task Force are now putting heads together to ensure these children get back to the communities to return their normal lives.
Ishaq Khalid there from Abuja. Let's bring you some staggering statistics now. Over 40 million people are now internally displaced because of war, conflict and violence. It's the highest number it's ever been, and 2/3 more than the global number of refugees. The figures are from a report by the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center. Let's look at them in more detail. 28 million new displacements. That's more people displaced in 2018 alone. Ethnic violence in Ethiopia triggered the highest number of new displacements and was 4 times the figure in 2017. And by the end of 2018, just under 2 million new people were reported to be displaced in the Democratic Republic of Congo as decades of unrest continued. In Nigeria, new waves of violence over scarce resources combined with the ongoing insurgency of Boko Haram and other armed groups were blamed for forcing people to flee their homes. And the outbreak of internal conflict in neighboring Cameroon led to similar levels of displacement. BBC Africa's Emmanuel Lugunza has more.
The report says sub-Saharan Africa experienced more internal displacement than any other region in 2018. Ethiopia topped the list with nearly 3 million people newly removed from their homes. This was triggered by conflict over resources and ethnic violence in different parts of the country. It was closely followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been rocked by years of conflict.
It takes extreme violence and fierce disasters to force a family out of their home, their land, their property, their community. So it's really a mind-boggling figure we're presenting today, 41.3 million people.
But the Ethiopian government has downplayed the figures, insisting that many have already returned home.
The figures that we've received and effective as of May 7, 2019, is that there's 875,000 that have been returned to their original residences. And these figures may shift. That's why I'm giving it a cutoff of May 7, because this is happening in real time. And as the efforts are being continued to reinstate people back into their locals and their communities, there's going to be an increase in terms of the numbers.
And it's not just armed conflicts that are causing people to flee their homes. Natural disasters like tropical cyclones, monsoon floods, wildfires and droughts have also triggered the displacement of millions in countries like China, India, Philippines and California in the US. Increasingly, many of the affected find themselves dealing with more than one violent disaster. This report paints a grim picture for millions of IDPs who can't return home, and the authors warn that the worst is yet to come if global leaders don't find urgent solutions to the factors that force people out of their homes. Emmanuel Igunza, BBC News, Nairobi.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwache. Still to come in sports, former Ivory Coast captain Yaya Toure is closing a chapter, but starting another. I'm Peter Okwache. The top stories this hour. The ANC is on course to win South Africa's election, but with their slimmest majority ever. With nearly all the votes counted, projections show the party with around 57%. And new figures show 28 million people were displaced by violence and conflict within their countries in 1 year alone. Now, a year ago today, residents of Kenya's Salai town, northwest of the capital Nairobi, were struck by a tragedy when a dam burst amid heavy rains, gushing tens of millions of liters of water into the sleeping villages below. 48 people lost their lives, and the owners of the Patel farm on which the dam is situated were arrested. But how is the town coping? The BBC's Zawade Mudibo went to find out.
On the evening of May 9th, 2018, a rumbling like heavy rain filled the air. Within minutes, chaos. The Milmet Dam that had for decades existed as a source of irrigation for the surrounding farmlands where flowers, macadamia nuts, tea and coffee are grown had burst. The dam water tore through 5 villages at speeds of more than 200 kilometers per hour, leaving many dead and scores injured. Massive destruction of property and more than 2,000 people were left homeless. John Mwangi's home was in the path of the flooding.
Then I could see something very dark moving above the trees because there was some moonlight. Something dark moving at a terrific speed towards our home. I just got stuck. I could not move. When I heard the bang and the screams, I knew something wrong, something had gone wrong. The only thing I can say right now, my life is completely ruined.
48 people lost their lives in the tragedy. John managed to escape with his 2 daughters, but his wife drowned. He takes us to where her body was laid to rest.
1 year after the dam tragedy that claimed tens of lives in Solai, these ruins remain as the only evidence of what characterized a very vibrant village full of life and heavily populated. But well-wishers have been at hand to help the survivors pick up the pieces by setting up permanent structures like these ones.
Tabitha Wanjiru, who lost her home and small business in the disaster, says the money she's received from both government funds and the Patel family have provided some relief.
Our lives had been shattered, but we're now regaining our dignity. This area had been deserted. It looked sorrowful. But now, you can see, normalcy is returning.
I went to meet Daya Achaya, the Patel firm's deputy general manager.
Well, we did not anticipate it because it was just a natural calamity. And it's only in the morning that we came to know what was the magnitude of the damage.
9 individuals, including 2 owners of the dam, have been charged at an Naivasha court in connection with the deaths. The 9 face charges of manslaughter and neglect of official duties, which they have denied and challenged. A year later, the matter still remains in court.
That was Zawadi Mudibo reporting from Salai in Kenya. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. Mimi?
Thank you very much, Peter. A boost for Liverpool as Egypt international Mohamed Salah is set to return for Sunday's final match in the English Premier League. They'll be playing Wolves at home. Salah got a concussion last weekend, which kept him out of Liverpool's incredible win over Barcelona in the European Champions League earlier in the week to book a place in the final. Defending champions Manchester City, who are 1 point ahead in the table, will travel to Brighton. But for Klopp, he says things are not going to be easy.
It's still difficult to be champion, and so that's how it is. But the only thing we can do is to win the game. And in this situation, obviously, it looks like Wolves and Brighton are only they're there. But City will win and we will win, and then at the end City is champion. But we have there's the game to play, and Wolves with ambitions, because they showed the whole year real ambition. They enjoyed their football. They are 7th in an unbelievable competitive league.
Former Manchester City and Barcelona midfielder Yaya Toure has retired from professional football. His agent made the announcement on his social media page. Dimitri Seluk wrote, "Next up is a career in coaching." The former Ivory Coast captain won the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations with his country, making 101 appearances for them. FIFA tweeted about the 4-time African Footballer of the Year who played at 3 World Cups. A giant of African football has hung up his boots. Moving on, Mali football legend Frédéric Kanouté is a man that knows all too well how to play at a Nations Cup. He was a joint top scorer in the 2004 when Mali finished 4th. This summer in Egypt, Mali will be in the group that will have the likes of Tunisia, Mauritania, and Angola. And Kanouté says that his country should be able to get past those teams and reach the knockout phase.
It's quite limited because it's a very young team, but that's also the reason why I'm really excited about seeing them in this AFCON, because we've renewed the team a little bit with fresh blood, with young players. Very exciting players, so yeah, I can't wait, but I think and I hope they're going to go through the group stage. That's the least of our expectations, and after that hopefully they can reach at least a semi-final, bearing in mind that we still haven't won this competition ever, so it would be a very nice story to do it with such a young team.
Some other top stories. Former South Africa international Teko Modise is to retire from all football at the age of 36. That's according to his club, Cape Town City. During his career, he's won 2 South African League titles, the African Champions League and CAF Super Cup titles with Mamelodi Sundowns. Elsewhere, Arsenal striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang says the North London club have learned their mistakes in the Europa League after his hat-trick against Valencia sealed their place in the final. The Gunners went out in the semi-final last year. They will now face Chelsea in an all-English affair later this month. And in the NBA, Cameroon's Joel Embiid's Philadelphia 76ers defeated the visiting Toronto Raptors 112-101. That evens the Eastern Conference semifinals and 3 games apiece. Game 7 will be played on Sunday in Toronto, and the winner will advance to face the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks. And that's all the sport, but what an exciting weekend we've got. We've had a fantastic week already, Peter.
Absolutely. I just want to start a debate now. Would Yaya Toure make the top 5, your list of top 5 best African footballers of all time?
Ooh, you've put me on the spot, but I'm going to say yes. He's won an Africa Cup of Nations.
Okay, all right. He'd probably be in my top 10, not in top 5, but there we go. Now, in Nigeria, Looking good is big business. As I'm sure you can tell from me. I didn't write that, by the way. The vibrant patterns tell the story of a nation with all its various cultures. Social media is also helping spread the word about the industry's established and rising stars. But which designers really stand out? I went to meet some of them in Abuja. When you know you look good, it shows. Proud to wear Nigerian labels, there's one designer celebrities are flocking to.
Shout out to Vodi.
Welcome to Nigeria, where fashion is king. There's no doubt that Nigerians put a lot of effort into how they dress. Whether they're going about their daily business, attending wedding parties, or church services like this one, they literally bring out their Sunday best. The myriad of colors, textiles, and embroidery on display helps to tell the story of this nation and its many tribes. And some of Nigeria's fashion designers are taking advantage of this trend.
Welcome to Body Tailors, home of fashion in Nigeria, where we make you look good. Please come with me.
Meet Seyi Adekunle. He turned to fashion when he failed to get a bank job after university. Over a decade later, he has no regrets.
Africans to Nigerians, we can stand our own in the world of fashion. We can do stuff that can look even more better than what you have in the Western world.
He now makes clothes for some of the most influential people in the West African sub-region, including top entertainers, powerful governors, and yes, presidents like Liberia's George Weah. Despite his obvious success, Seyi prefers to keep it simple and calls himself a tailor. But his business now spans shoes, cufflinks, and outfits for special occasions. He also has a fashion institute where he trains up-and-coming tailors.
This can be used for Friday wear.
One of those he has taken under his wing is Sandra Ogbolu, owner of the budding House of Moesha.
I've been in love with styling people, and then I grew up around people that makes clothes. Like my parents is a fashion designer. My mom is actually a fashion designer as well. So.
While the likes of Seyi and Sharon might cater for the very powerful and the middle class, thousands of others cater for the, well, not so wealthy. Meet Emmanuel Peters. He shares a small shop with several other independent tailors, and he also says business is booming.
We are Africans, and we like looking good. So looking good is a good business.
Well, as long as this remains true, Nigeria's tailors will keep making sure that Nigerians are always well turned out. Peter Okwoche, BBC World News. Now, just before we go, another look at our top story. Election results in South Africa, where the ANC is set to claim victory. The ruling party has around 57% of the vote, a clear majority, with nearly all the ballots counted. The Democratic Alliance has just over 20%, and the Economic Freedom Fighters has around 10%. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he now has a mandate to continue to crack down on corruption and tackle the high unemployment rate. And don't forget, you can get in touch with me and some of the team on Twitter. I'm at Okwoche. But that's it on Focus on Africa for this week. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you again next week.